Commander Vexstar sat in his command chair, watching the endless stream of data flow across his screens. The Zephyrian Imperial Command Station was the size of a small moon, floating in the dark space around Nexus Prime for 300 years. This massive station had watched over the most important part of the Galactic Empire. Nothing moved through this area of space without their knowledge. The commander's 4 eyes scanned the displays with practiced ease. Ships came and went, carrying goods and people between the Empire's core worlds. Every vessel was logged, tracked, and cleared through their systems. It was routine work, but Vexstar took pride in keeping the Empire's heart safe from any threat. His scaled fingers tapped against the armrest of his chair as he reviewed the morning reports. Trade ships from the mining worlds, diplomatic vessels from the outer colonies, military patrols on their regular routes. Everything was exactly as it should be. The Empire's order was perfect, as it had been for thousands of years, Lieutenant. Kirillin approached his station, her footsteps soft on the metal floor. Her tentacles moved nervously as she carried a datapad in her hands. Vexstar had worked with her for 5 years, and he knew that look meant something was wrong. "Commander," she said, her voice tight with concern, "we have something unusual on the long-range sensors." Vexstar turned his attention to her. "Define unusual, Lieutenant." Kirillin placed the datapad on his console. "A contact appeared on our screens 15 minutes ago. It's moving toward the core worlds at incredible speed." The commander looked at the readings and felt his stomach drop. The numbers made no sense. According to the sensors, something was moving through space at speeds that should be impossible. Even the Empire's fastest ships couldn't match what he was seeing. "Check the sensors again," he ordered. "This has to be an error." "I've run 3. Complete diagnostics, sir. The equipment is working perfectly." Kirillin's tentacles curled with worry. "Whatever this is, it's real." Vexstar stood up and walked to the main display screen. The unknown contact showed as a small dot moving across the star map. It was still far away, but at its current speed, it would reach the inner worlds in less than 6 hours. "Run it through the database," he commanded. "Find out what kind of ship can move that fast." The lieutenant's fingers flew over her control panel. After a few minutes, she shook her head. "No matches, Commander. The computer has checked every known ship design from every species in the Empire. This doesn't match anything in our records." This was impossible. The Empire had been exploring the galaxy for over 10,000 years. They had cataloged every spacefaring civilization, every type of vessel, every form of technology. Their database contained information on millions of different ship designs. Nothing could exist that wasn't already known to them. "Where did it come from?" Vexstar asked. Kirillin traced the contact's path backward on the screen. "The outer rim, sir. From a section we marked as a dead zone centuries ago. Nothing lives out there. The gravitational fields and radiation would kill any known life form." The commander stared at the display. The dead zones were areas of space that the Empire had written off as too dangerous to explore. They were filled with strange cosmic phenomena that made travel nearly impossible. No civilization had ever developed in those regions because the conditions were too harsh. Could it be a probe? He wondered aloud. Something automated? "The energy signature suggests it's occupied, sir. And it's too large to be just a probe. Based on our readings, it's about the size of a light cruiser." Vexstar felt a chill run down his spine. A ship from the dead zones, moving at impossible speeds, heading straight for the Empire's most important worlds. This was either the greatest sensor malfunction in history, or something that would change everything they thought they knew about. "The galaxy, alert Admiral Zorthak," he ordered. "Tell him we have a priority 1 situation." While Kirillin sent the message, Vexstar continued to study the mysterious contact. The ship maintained its incredible speed without any sign of slowing down. Most vessels would need to reduce velocity as they approached inhabited systems, but this one showed no such caution. Admiral Zorthak arrived within minutes, his heavy footsteps echoing through the command center. The old warrior had fought in more battles than anyone else in the fleet. His scarred face and missing arm told the story of a lifetime spent defending the Empire. Nothing surprised him anymore, or so Vexstar had always believed. "Show me," the Admiral growled, his voice rough from years of shouting orders. Vexstar gestured. "To the main screen. Unknown contact, sir. Speed and trajectory suggest it will reach Nexus Prime in less than 6 hours. We have no record of this type of vessel in our database." Admiral Zorthak studied the display with his keen eyes. His expression grew more serious with each passing moment. "Energy readings? Unlike anything we've seen before, sir. The power source appears to be completely different from our technology or any known alien design." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "In my 120 years of service, I have never encountered something that wasn't in our records. The Empire knows everything that flies in this galaxy." "What are your orders, sir?" Vexstar asked. Admiral Zorthak straightened his shoulders. "Prepare the defense fleet. If this is some kind of weapon, we need to be ready, and send word to the High Council. They need to know that something impossible is heading our way." As alarms began to sound throughout the station, Vexstar watched the unknown ship continue its approach. Whatever it was, wherever it came from, it was about to change the Empire forever. The perfect order they had maintained for millennia was about to face its greatest test. The small dot on the screen kept moving, carrying with it questions that would shake the foundations of everything they believed about their place in the galaxy. The emergency meeting room aboard the Imperial Command Station buzzed with activity. Scientists, military officers, and xenobiologists gathered around a massive holographic display showing the approaching vessel. Admiral Zorthak stood at the head of the table, his weathered face grim as he watched the alien ship draw closer. Dr. Silvera entered the room carrying several data tablets. She was the Empire's leading expert on unknown species, though she had not encountered a truly new civilization in over 50 years. Her silver hair gleamed under the bright lights as she took her place at the table. "What do we know?" the Admiral asked without looking away from the display. "Very little," Dr. Silvera admitted. "The ship's design is completely foreign to us. The materials appear to be simple metal alloys, but they're arranged in ways we've never seen before. The energy signature suggests a power source based on principles we don't understand." Commander Vexstar pointed to the readings on his screen. "The vessel is now 2 hours away from visual range. It hasn't responded to any of our standard greeting protocols." "Maybe they don't know how to communicate with us," suggested Lieutenant Kirillin. "If they're from the dead zones, they might never have encountered another spacefaring species." Dr. Silvera nodded thoughtfully. "That's possible. The outer rim species we've discovered in the past were always primitive. They'd barely managed to leave their homeworlds before we found them. This could be their first attempt at deep space travel." Admiral Zorthak turned to face the group. "If that's true, then we're dealing with beginners who somehow developed faster than light technology. That doesn't make sense. It took most species thousands of years to achieve what we're seeing here." "Perhaps they found abandoned technology," offered Commander Vexstar. "Ancient ruins or a derelict ship from one of the extinct civilizations." The discussion was interrupted when the main display lit up with new information. The unknown vessel had finally come close enough for their visual sensors to get a clear image. Everyone in the room fell silent as they stared at the strange ship on the screen. The vessel was smaller than they had expected, roughly the size of a light cruiser but with an unusual design. Its hull was smooth and white with blue markings along the sides. Strange symbols were painted near what appeared to be the front of the ship. The overall shape was sleek and purposeful, unlike the elaborate decorative designs favored by most galactic civilizations. "It's so simple," whispered Dr. Silvera. "No artistic flourishes, no cultural symbols we can recognize, just pure function." "Those markings on the hull," Admiral Zorthak said, pointing at the display. "Are they a language?" The computer began analyzing the symbols immediately. After several minutes, it reported back with negative results. The markings didn't match any known writing system in the Empire's vast database inside the human vessel. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair studying the massive alien fleet that had appeared around them. The bridge of the UES Horizon was cramped compared to the Imperial ships, but it was filled with the most advanced technology Earth had ever produced. "How many ships are out there now, Lisa?" Jake asked his communications officer. Lisa Chun looked up from her console. "Over 100, Captain. And more are arriving every few minutes. Some of these ships are enormous. That command station is bigger than anything we imagined possible." Dr. Sam Rodriguez, the ship's chief scientist, was bent over his instruments, trying to make sense of the alien technology. "Their energy signatures are incredible, Jake. These people have been building starships for a very long time." "Any luck with communications?" Jake asked. "They keep sending the same mathematical sequence," Lisa replied. "Prime numbers, then basic geometric formulas. It's the universal language approach we expected." Jake nodded. "Can you respond?" "I think so. Give me a few more minutes to work out their transmission method." The captain stood up and walked to the main view screen. Through the transparent aluminum, he could see the alien fleet surrounding them. The ships were beautiful in their own way, with graceful curves and glowing sections that pulsed with energy. They looked like works of art as much as vessels of war. "Sam, what's your assessment of their technology?" Jake asked. Dr. Rodriguez straightened up from his console. "Advanced, but in ways we didn't expect. Their ships are incredibly powerful, but they seem to rely on brute force rather than efficiency. It's like they never had to worry about resource limitations." "That makes sense if they've been a galactic empire for thousands of years," Jake mused. "They've had time to build whatever they wanted." Lisa suddenly looked up from her station with excitement. "Captain, I think I've got it. I can send a response to their mathematical greeting." "Do it," Jake ordered, back on the Imperial command station. Lieutenant Carolyn nearly jumped out of her chair when her console lit up with an incoming transmission. "Commander, they're responding." The message appeared on the main screen, displaying the same mathematical sequence the Empire had sent, but with additional formulas added to show understanding. Then came something new, more complex. Mathematics that seemed to describe physical laws and constants. Dr. Silvera leaned forward, her eyes wide with fascination. "They understand our greeting, and they're showing us they know basic physics. But look at these additional equations. They're describing principles I don't recognize. Can we establish real communication?" Admiral Zorthak demanded. "We can try," Carolyn said, her tentacles dancing over her controls. "I'm uploading our standard first contact package. Basic concepts, mathematical relationships, and simple pictographs." On the human ship, Lisa watched as data flooded into their computers. "They're sending us what looks like a language primer, Captain. Pictures, symbols, and mathematical relationships." Jake looked at the information flowing across their screens. "How long to decode it?" "With our translation software, maybe 6 hours for basic communication." Lisa estimated. Dr. Rodriguez was studying the alien data with growing amazement. "Jake, you need to see this. Their mathematical understanding is incredible, but it's all based on principles we abandoned decades ago. They're using brute force methods to solve problems we handle with elegant shortcuts." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "It means they're incredibly advanced, but in a completely different direction than we went. They built bigger and more powerful, while we learned to be smarter and more efficient." Captain Morrison sat back in his chair, realizing the full implications of their situation. They had stumbled into contact with a vast galactic civilization that had been building for millennia. But somehow, despite their small size and recent arrival in space, humanity had developed along a completely different path. "Keep working on communications," he told Lisa. "I have a feeling this conversation is going to change everything for both our species." The two fleets hung in space, each trying to understand the other. Neither side realized they were about to discover that there was more than one way to reach for the stars. 6 hours later, the breakthrough came. Lieutenant Carolyn looked up from her console with excitement written across her face. The translation program had finally cracked enough of the alien language to allow basic communication. "Admiral, we have established contact," she announced. The beings call themselves humans. Their ship is named the UES Horizon. Admiral Zorthuk moved closer to the communication station. What do they want? Are they scouts for a larger fleet? No, sir, Kirillin replied, studying the incoming messages. According to their captain, they are explorers from a world called Earth. They say they are alone. Dr. Silvera frowned at this information. Just one ship? That doesn't make tactical sense. No species sends a single vessel into unknown space without backup. Commander Vexstar was running searches through the Empire's planetary database. After several minutes, he looked up with confusion. There's no world called Earth in our records. I've checked every inhabited planet we've cataloged in the past 10,000 years. Check the dead zones, Admiral Zorthak ordered. Already? Did, sir. Nothing. If this Earth exists, we have never detected it. The Admiral felt a chill run down his spine. The Empire's surveys were perfect. They had mapped every star system, every habitable world, every trace of civilization in the known galaxy. Finding a species they had missed was supposed to be impossible. Open a direct channel, he commanded. I want to speak with their leader myself. On the human ship, Captain Jake Morrison received the request for direct communication. He straightened his uniform and nodded to Lisa Chun. Put them through. The main view screen flickered, and suddenly Jake found himself face to face with Admiral Zorthak. The alien was impressive, with dark-scaled skin and intelligent eyes that seemed to weigh everything they saw. Despite his fearsome appearance, Jake could sense intelligence and curiosity rather than hostility. I am Admiral Zorthak of the Galactic Empire, the alien said, his words coming through the translation system with only a slight delay. You claim to represent a world we have never encountered. This should not be possible. Jake stood up and gave a slight bow. I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Horizon. We're from Earth, in what we call the Orion arm of the galaxy. This is our first journey beyond our local star group. The Orion arm? Dr. Silvera's voice came through the communication channel. That region is marked as uninhabitable in our charts. The gravitational anomalies and cosmic radiation make life impossible there. Dr. Sam Rodriguez stepped forward on the human bridge. Those same conditions you call dangerous are what protected us and helped us develop our technology. We learned to work with the cosmic forces instead of avoiding them. Admiral Zorthak's eyes widened. You live in the dead zones? How is that possible? What you call dead zones, we call home, Jake explained. Earth sits in the middle of several gravitational fields that create what we call tidal forces. We used those forces to develop our faster-than-light drive system. Commander Vexstar was frantically checking star charts. Sir, if they're telling the truth, their world would be hidden behind multiple cosmic phenomena. Our sensors would never have detected it during our surveys. The implications hit Admiral Zorthak like a physical blow. For thousands of years, the Empire had believed they knew everything about the galaxy. They had cataloged every civilization, every habitable world, every form of life. Their sense of order and control was built on the certainty that nothing existed beyond their knowledge. How long has your species been spacefaring? Dr. Silvera asked. Jake looked at Sam, who nodded encouragingly. We achieved faster-than-light travel about 30 years ago, but we only started exploring beyond our immediate neighbors 5 years ago. The silence on the Imperial Bridge was complete. 30 years. Most species in the Empire had taken thousands of years to develop interstellar travel. The Empire itself had required millennia to perfect their current technology. That's impossible, Dr. Silvera whispered. No species develops that quickly. We had to, explained Dr. Rodriguez. Our planet's location in the cosmic anomaly field meant we either learned to harness those forces or we never left our solar system. We didn't have the luxury of gradual development. Admiral Zorthak struggled to process this information. How many of you are there? How many ships? How many worlds? Just Earth, Jake replied simply. About 8 billion people on one world. This is our first deep space exploration vessel. We have a few other ships, but they're all still in our home system. One world, repeated Commander Vextar in amazement. One ship, and you traveled here from the dead zones in a matter of days. Actually, it took us 3 weeks, Jake corrected. We're still learning how to navigate the cosmic currents efficiently. Dr. Silvera leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her shock. These cosmic currents you mentioned, you use them for propulsion? Among other things, Sam answered. The gravitational anomalies create what we call space-time streams. By riding these streams and creating our own localized fields, we can travel much faster than conventional drives would allow. Admiral Zorthek realized he was witnessing something that would change the Empire forever. Here was a species that had accomplished in decades what had taken his people millennia to achieve. They had turned the galaxy's most dangerous regions into their greatest advantage. Captain Morrison, he said formally, I must ask you to accompany us to Nexus Prime. The High Council needs to hear what you have told us. Jake looked around his bridge at his small crew. Lisa Chun gave him an encouraging nod. Sam Rodriguez was practically vibrating with excitement at the chance to see an advanced galactic civilization. The rest of his 12-person crew looked nervous but ready for whatever came next. We'll follow you, Admiral, Jake agreed. But I should warn you, we do things differently than you might expect. I'm beginning to understand that, Admiral Zorthek replied grimly. The question is whether the rest of the Empire will be ready to accept what you represent. As the communication ended, both sides prepared for a journey that would challenge everything they thought they knew about progress, technology, and their place in the galaxy. The small human ship prepared to enter the heart of a civilization that had ruled the stars for thousands of years, while that same civilization grappled with the realization that their understanding of the galaxy was far from complete, the UES. Horizon began moving toward the Imperial fleet, its revolutionary drive system making the journey look effortless. Behind them, they left questions that would reshape galactic civilization. Ahead of them lay answers that neither species was fully prepared to face. The Imperial fleet formed a massive formation around the small human vessel as they traveled toward Nexus Prime. Over 200 ships of various sizes surrounded the UES horizon, creating a sight that would have terrified any known enemy. But Captain Jake Morrison and his crew seemed remarkably calm about being escorted by such overwhelming force. Admiral Zorthek watched the human ship from his flagship's bridge. The small vessel moved with a grace that impressed him despite himself. While his massive dreadnoughts required careful coordination to maintain formation, the human ship adjusted its position effortlessly as if dancing between the larger vessels. Their maneuvering is remarkable, observed Commander Vextar. They're making micro-adjustments that our best pilots would struggle to achieve. Dr. Silvera was studying energy readings from the human vessel. Their drive system is incredibly efficient. They're using less power than one of our shuttlecraft, yet keeping pace with our fastest cruisers. The Admiral made a decision that would prove more significant than anyone realized. Contact Captain Morrison. I want to see what these humans can really do. The communication channel opened and Jake appeared on the main view screen. Admiral, what can we do for you? Captain, my officers are curious about your capabilities. Would you be willing to demonstrate your ship's abilities? Jake looked around his bridge. His engineer Tony Walsh gave him a thumbs up from his station. Pilot Amy Carter was grinning with anticipation. Navigator Kate Phillips nodded confidently. What did you have in mind, Admiral? Admiral Zorthek gestured to a tactical display. There's a dangerous asteroid field ahead. It's filled with unstable gas pockets that explode if disturbed. Our ships usually take several hours to navigate through it safely. Our computers calculate the safest path and we follow it exactly. Sounds challenging, Jake replied. What's the test? Navigate through the field in less than 30 minutes without triggering any explosions. The Imperial officers around Admiral Zorthek exchanged glances. This was considered an impossible task. Their best navigators needed at least 2 hours to plot a safe course, and even then there was significant risk. We'll give it a try, Jake said simply. Dr. Silvera leaned toward the Admiral. Sir, Perhaps we should warn them about the danger. If they fail, they could be destroyed. They seem confident, Admiral Zorthak replied. Let's see what they can do. The UES Horizon broke away from the fleet formation and approached the asteroid field. From the outside, it looked like a glittering maze of floating rocks and swirling gas clouds. Energy readings showed the unstable pockets that could detonate with the slightest disturbance. On the human bridge. The crew prepared for the challenge with casual efficiency. Tony Walsh ran diagnostics on their drive system while Amy Carter studied the asteroid field through their sensors. This is going to be fun, Amy said, cracking her knuckles. Tony, can you give me extra power to the maneuvering thrusters? Already on it, Tony replied. Kate, what's our best entry point? Navigator Kate Phillips was looking at the asteroid field in a way that confused the watching Imperial officers. Instead of using computers to calculate safe paths, she was studying the movement patterns of the gas clouds. See how the gas moves? She said to her crewmates. It's not random. There's a rhythm to it. If we time our approach right, we can use the gas currents to help us navigate. Dr. Sam Rodriguez looked up from his science station. The gravitational fields from the asteroids are creating predictable flow patterns. Kate's right. We can ride the currents instead of fighting them. Jake nodded to Amy. Take us in. What happened next amazed every Imperial officer watching. The UES Horizon didn't slowly pick its way through the dangerous field like Imperial ships would. Instead, it seemed to dance through the asteroids, using the very forces that made the area dangerous as tools for navigation. Amy Carter flew the ship with an intuitive understanding that no Imperial pilot possessed. She didn't rely entirely on computer calculations. Instead, she watched the movement of gas and debris, feeling the rhythm of the gravitational forces and adjusting their path in real time. How are they doing that? Whispered Lieutenant Carolyn. Commander Vexstar was staring at his instruments in disbelief. They're not following any predetermined course? They're making decisions on the fly, using sensor data we would never think to monitor. The human ship twisted and rolled through the asteroid field, its hull sometimes passing within meters of explosive gas pockets. But instead of triggering explosions, their passage seemed to calm the unstable areas. Engineer Ben Clark had joined Tony Walsh at the engineering station. Tony, look at these readings. We're not just avoiding the dangerous areas, we're actually stabilizing them as we pass. How? Tony asked, though he was already starting to understand. Our drive field is creating micro-gravitational adjustments. We're smoothing out the chaotic forces that make the gas pockets unstable. On the Imperial flagship, Dr. Silvera was frantically taking notes. They're not just navigating through the field. They're improving it. The areas they've passed through are showing reduced instability. In just 18 minutes, the UES Horizon emerged from the other side of the asteroid field. Behind them, the dangerous maze showed significantly less volatile activity than before their passage. Admiral Zorthak sat in stunned silence. His fleet's instruments confirmed what seemed impossible. The humans had not only completed the navigation challenge. In record time, they had actually made the area safer for future travelers. Captain Morrison, the Admiral said when communication was reestablished, that was extraordinary. How did you do it? Jake smiled. We approached it differently than you would, Admiral. Instead of seeing the asteroid field as an obstacle to overcome, we saw it as a system to work with. Our engineer Ben Clark figured out how to use our drive field to smooth out the gravitational disturbances as we passed. But the calculations required for such precise maneuvering, protested Dr. Silvera. Your computers would need to process millions of variables simultaneously. Actually, said Dr. Rodriguez, we didn't use pure calculations. Amy flew mostly by instinct, feeling the flow of forces around us. Kate provided intuitive navigation based on pattern recognition. Tony and Ben made real-time adjustments to our systems based on immediate sensor feedback. The Imperial officers struggled to understand this approach. Their entire civilization was built on careful planning, detailed calculations, and following established procedures. The idea of making critical decisions based on intuition and real-time adaptation was foreign to them. You mean your pilot made life-or-death decisions without complete data? Asked Commander Vexstar. Complete data doesn't exist in a dynamic situation, Amy Carter replied. You have to work with what you have and adapt as conditions change. This demonstration revealed something profound about the difference between human and imperial thinking. The Empire had achieved greatness through systematic accumulation of knowledge and careful application of proven methods. Humans had learned to thrive by adapting quickly to changing conditions and finding creative solutions to impossible problems. As the combined fleet continued toward Nexus Prime, the Imperial officers found themselves questioning assumptions they had held for thousands of years. The small human ship had not just succeeded at an impossible task. It had approached the challenge in a way that fundamentally challenged their understanding of how problems should be solved. Admiral Zorthak realized that bringing these humans to the Imperial capital would do more than introduce a new species to the galaxy. It would force the Empire to confront the possibility that their way of doing things was not the only way, and perhaps not even the best way. The Imperial capital world of Nexus Prime appeared ahead of them like a glowing jewel in space. Massive orbital stations surrounded the planet, each one larger than most cities. The sheer scale of the Empire's achievement was breathtaking, representing thousands of years of careful construction and planning. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, watching the approaching capital with genuine admiration. It's incredible, he said to his crew. Look what they've built. Dr. Sam Rodriguez was taking readings of the orbital structures. The engineering is amazing, Jake. Some of these stations must house millions of people. The amount of resources and coordination required is staggering. Different approach than ours, noted engineer Tony Walsh. We build small and efficient, they build massive and permanent. As the fleet approached the main orbital complex, Admiral Zorthak's flagship received urgent communications from the High Council. The news of the human contact had spread quickly through the Imperial government, creating a crisis that threatened the very foundations of their society. Council leader Mordek appeared on the Admiral's communication screen, his ancient features twisted with concern. Admiral, you must understand the implications of what you've brought us. For 10,000 years, we have maintained order by demonstrating that the Empire represents the pinnacle of galactic evolution. These humans challenge that fundamental belief. With respect, Council Leader, Admiral Zorthak replied, what they challenge is our assumption that we knew everything there was to know about the galaxy. That assumption has been the foundation of our authority, Mordek said harshly. If word spreads that a primitive species from the Outer Rim has surpassed our capabilities in mere decades, it will undermine confidence in Imperial leadership throughout the galaxy. Lieutenant Carolyn looked up from her station with alarm. Sir, I'm detecting weapon systems powering up on several Imperial ships. They're targeting the human vessel. Admiral Zorthak felt his blood run cold. Some faction within the fleet wanted to destroy the evidence of humanity's existence rather than face the implications of their achievements. Open a channel to all ships, he ordered. This is Admiral Zorthak. Any vessel that fires on our guest will answer directly to me. Stand down all weapons immediately. The tension on the Imperial bridge was thick enough to cut. Officers who had served together for decades suddenly found themselves on opposite sides of a question that would define their civilization's future on the human ship. The crew had detected the weapon signatures targeting them. Jake Morrison made a decision that would prove crucial to both species' destiny. Lisa, open a channel to the entire Imperial fleet, he commanded. All ships, Captain, all ships. When the communication channel opened, Jake addressed not just Admiral Zorthak, but every Imperial officer in the fleet. This is Captain Morrison of Earth. I know some of you see us as a threat to your way of life. I understand why our existence troubles you. His words were being transmitted to hundreds of ships and thousands of Imperial officers. But we didn't come here to replace you or to prove you wrong, Jake continued. We came here to explore, to learn, and maybe to make friends. What we've discovered is that there are many different ways to reach for the stars. Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward to join the transmission. Your empire has achieved something we never could: unity and cooperation across thousands of worlds and countless species. You've created stability and order on a galactic scale. That's not something we can do or want to replace. Engineer Ben? Clark added his voice to the message. What we offer is a different perspective. You've perfected the art of building big and building to last. We've learned to build smart and adapt quickly. Maybe together we can combine both approaches. The communication reached the High Council chambers on Nexus Prime, where the most powerful beings in the galaxy were debating humanity's fate. Council leader Mordek listened with growing surprise to the humans' words. They're not claiming superiority, observed Council member Veltara. They're offering partnership. Back on Admiral Zorthek's flagship, Lieutenant Carolyn was monitoring communications across the fleet. Sir, weapon systems are powering down. The crews are responding to the human message. Dr. Silvera had been quietly reviewing all the data they had collected about human technology and society. Now she spoke up with conviction. Admiral, we have a choice to make. We can try to suppress knowledge of these humans and maintain our old assumptions about galactic civilization. Or we can embrace the opportunity to learn and grow. Commander Vexstar nodded in agreement. The humans have shown us capabilities we didn't know were possible. But more than that, they've shown us ways of thinking we never considered. Admiral Zorthek made his decision. Open a channel to the High Council? When Council Leader Mordek appeared on the screen, the Admiral spoke with firm resolve. Council Leader, I request permission to bring our human guest to the capital. Not as prisoners or threats, but as representatives of a new member species. The Council has not approved membership for these humans, Mordek protested. Then perhaps it's time for the Council to consider changing how we think about membership, Admiral Zorthek replied. These people have capabilities that could benefit the entire empire. But more importantly, they have perspectives that could help us continue growing instead of stagnating. The debate that followed would be remembered as one of the most important in Imperial history. Young voices like Lieutenant Carolyn argued for embracing change and learning from humanity's different approach. Older, more conservative members, worried about the stability that had served the Empire for millennia. Finally, Council member Veltara proposed a compromise. Let the humans come to the capital. Let them share their knowledge and their perspectives. But let them do so as partners, not as subjects or conquerors. The vote was close, but change won by a narrow margin. Captain Jake Morrison received the invitation with mixed emotions. Admiral, we're honored by your offer. But I have to ask, are you sure your people are ready for this? Admiral Zorthek looked around his bridge at officers who had been transformed by their encounter with humanity. Commander Vexstar was studying human navigation techniques. Dr. Silvera was analyzing their approach to problem-solving. Lieutenant Carolyn was learning about human decision-making processes. Captain, the Admiral replied, I think we're more ready than we realized. Your arrival has reminded us that the universe is bigger and more wonderful than we thought. That's not a threat to the Empire. That's exactly what the Empire needs to continue growing. As the UES Horizon received clearance to approach Nexus Prime, both species prepared for a future that neither had expected. The small human ship, carrying just 12 people from a single world, had managed to shake the foundations of a galactic civilization. But instead of destroying the old order, they had opened the door to something new. The Empire would continue to provide stability and order across the galaxy. But now it would also embrace innovation and adaptation. Humanity would share their knowledge and perspectives. While learning from thousands of years of Imperial wisdom, Admiral Zorthek watched the human ship approach the capital and smiled. For the first time in decades, the future seemed full of possibilities rather than predictable routine. The galaxy had just become a much more interesting place.